Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us. Only 5 more of these to go. That's all I can say. My God. If you're listening to us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes or on Spotify or across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And we are here to provide you with instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur scoring 3 at Anfield, but still coming away with yet absolutely nothing. Spurs being Spurs at the very end to the death of that game. Before we get into the show, delighted to have 3 great returning guests alongside me. Lee McQueen's back in the house. Lee, does that even surprise you as a Spurs fan anymore? Are you surprised?
I get in agreement, didn't I, to everyone on there, and I said, unreal, unbelievable. And then I thought, actually, is it? Is it unreal? Is it unbelievable? Did we think this was happening? I mean, look, we're going to get into it, and I know that there's a lot of anger and moaning and frustration. I for once, Rick, I actually might be lost for words, which is probably a dream for all of the viewers and listeners, to be honest. But I can't believe that every time we go to Anfield, Anthony Costa, one of our own, posted in our WhatsApp group this morning a compilation video of our travels to Anfield that someone had made on Twitter. Sorry, I can't name check them. I don't know who it was. But it was just hit the post, hit the bar, missed hits, own goals by Toby over the world, missed penalties by Kane. You know, all of these things that are happening, like, 90th minute, 87th minute, 91st minute. What's his name? Teeth, that scored in the 91st minute against us, the header when Bergwijn hit the post and had a brilliant shot, that year. It's just constant. And finally, you think to yourself, here we go. We might have something here if we get another one. And we did. And then we got the equaliser. We've hit the post twice. I know one of them was offside. We've had a fantastic shot saved as well by Porro. A shot by Porro, saved by Alisson. We shoulda, coulda, woulda, wouldn't we? Shoulda, coulda, woulda FC. And could have been, should have been, would have been so different. And we should have had the 3 points. And, we would unbelievably, after that first 15 minutes, you could go as far as to say we were the better side.
It's quite unbelievable. Russ, loves to be back on Last Word on Spurs. Many use your dulcet tones as therapy now on here, such as we have to book you up in advance. You may cancel after what's happened today. Russ, How are you? Before we get into the game, how are you firstly?
Yeah, well, I was, up until 4:30, quite good. I mean, the first, Lee said, the first 15 minutes, which I was up at Newcastle, it was on that level, wasn't it? I mean, it was just dreadful. And I mean, I do think that Liverpool and us are in the league positions that we deserve to be in. We're not a top 4 club at the moment. And, to fight back, Richie to, claim the 3rd goal as an ex-Evertonian. It was just, you couldn't make it up. But I did say, you won't remember this, Rick, and maybe the viewers won't, that peak Lucas was Amsterdam all those years ago. And it is just the most appalling mistake to make when, we've got a point. We've come back at Anfield. We are 3-0 down and it's 3-3. And as Lee said, from about the half an hour mark, we were the better team overall. And I've seen that, would have done better with Russ's dog at centre-back. I mean, Romero, I don't want to pick him out particularly, but I'm going to. Even if he played like that, international football, he'd never get in the Argentina team. These are really good players. Gary Neville said on commentary, we know that they have really good players, but what is it? Is it mental? Is it lack of talent? Is it lack of concentration? Our record at Anfield is shocking, and it's baffling, really, because to me, that Liverpool team are not great at all and should never have been in the position that they were 3-0 up. They weren't worthy of that. but they were clinical. And it's something that we're not until the chips are down. And the credit to the players to come back 3-3. I hope Nagelsmann or whoever was watching the second half, because there's a chance we might get a decent manager, because if he's watching the first 15 minutes in the game at Newcastle and, the first 35 minutes against Manchester United, he won't come anywhere near our club. And that's a concern for me, that we've got Ryan Mason running the football team now at the age of 31. He doesn't want that gig. I mean, it's absolute madness, for the chairman of Glaxo to phone up one morning and say, well, the office boy will let him run the company for a week. And I mean that with the greatest respect to Ryan, who I really like. It's unfair to put him in the situation that he's in now, taking care of a supposedly massive football club. And we're asking too much of him. And, he shouldn't be anywhere near that job. Stellini shouldn't have been anywhere near that job. This is down to Daniel, Donna Cullen, the board, who just were rabbits in the headlights. And if you can have an interim manager, get a proper one. We're not the only club, by the way. Chelsea, as we know. What's going on there? It doesn't work if you don't get the right person. And, obviously, I know Ryan's going to be in there to the end of the season. I'd love him to win every game, go off somewhere and get a job in the lower leagues and work his way up. And I'm sure he'll become a really good coach. But to expect him to deliver and burden that stress and responsibility of managing our football club at the moment, I think is a dereliction of duty by the chairman and the board. I just think it's madness.
Many agree with you, Russ. Jace, before we come on to the game, I feel like it's almost an offence to ask how you are at the moment, given what's going on at the football club. I mean, so if you don't laugh, you cry, right?
My first trip, they're always the team that I despise after Arsenal more than anyone else. I've preferred Chelsea to win cup finals than them. They broke me when they beat us 7-0 on my first trip up there, and my mum took the pee out of me and made me cry. I was the kid crying his eyes out at 7-0. And ever since then, I've absolutely despised the football club. They beat us in our first time we ever lost a cup final was to them. That Champions League final was to them. At Anfield, it's 5 wins in 112 years. Not even Billy Nick could win there. So I think I've had one couple of good days at Anfield in my life. Lucky to see Teddy and Jurgen win on my birthday up there. But there's just something about them I despise. And today was, just another reason why I do it. I'm probably not as flat or angry as most people tonight, because whilst to come back to 3-3 and chuck it away is frustrating, 3-0 down in 14 minutes on the back of Newcastle. When players talk about we're going to learn our lessons and we've got to get our pride back, and then they turn up and play like that in those first 14 minutes, and we're buried in 14 minutes. And let's be fair, we've come back in the game and fair enough, but Liverpool just stopped playing. The intensity stopped from Liverpool, let us off the hook. If Liverpool had kept going like that, it would have been Newcastle all over again. So, yeah, you feel like we probably deserved a point on the balance of the game, but to me, we thoroughly deserve to get beat after that first 15. You cannot go to Anfield and play like that in 15 minutes. It's one of those places where, Gary Neville often talks about it. Anfield, the emotion runs away with teams. And to go to Anfield and be like that in 15 minutes again, with ridiculous goals, balls given away, stupid fouls in the box, players not tracking runs, no sign of a press up front, just going there like lambs to the slaughter again. And then, so we don't learn from Newcastle, and then we don't even learn from Bournemouth, where we equalise in the 95th minute and concede in the 96th minute. Yeah. Exactly the same. When do these players ever learn a lesson? And yet we'll still hear the same thing trotted out. So yeah, I'm not as broken as a lot of people today at Anfield, just because I think it's so much of it is our own faults. It really is our own fault. And until we sort ourselves out, it will continue to happen.
Mm.
Yeah, you
Great
mentioned
point on
there,
the screen there.
just quickly, you mentioned there, Jason, you can add Everton to that 90th minute winner. Equaliser against us.
But over
Southampton,
a season,
3-1 up, and then we drew 3-3.
Over a season, Lee, you'll have the 90th minute goals against you. We scored at Chelsea in the 95th minute to score it. But you know, it's the stupid thing. Just 2 weeks after Bournemouth, where. And I kind of get why we're out of shape. And I didn't have a problem with Lucas. I'm thinking with 3-2 down, go all out for the goal. It's pointless just sitting there and take it. So get as many forward players on. But you do know that when that happens, you're so out of shape that as soon as you kick off, the brains have got to be switched on. You've got to think, if we do score, what is the pattern? What is the shape straight after? And we should have learnt that from Bournemouth. And we didn't.
Yeah. But it's the irony, isn't it? You bring Lucas on in that situation where maybe you want him to go forward, and the first thing he does is messes his pass going backward. I mean, he couldn't make it up.
Straight on top of his sending off at Goodison.
Exactly. Everton, yeah. I mean, Anthony makes a good point here, didn't he, Rick?
Yeah, he does. I mean, Anthony's point on the screen there, we've taken 4 points out of 33 against top six teams around us. I mean, that is a truly... utterly horrendous statistic. I mean, if you're going to want to achieve anything in football, anything in terms of trying to be ambitious or competitive, you can't be playing and having stats like that. And also, just on Moura, we'll come on to Moura in more detail. He's now single-handedly cost Spurs points in both his last 2 games, despite featuring for only 12 minutes of the 180 minutes. That again is just absolutely insane. It is. I promise you guys. Yeah.
That's easy to say is single-handedly. Is his error any bigger than Romero's error? Is it any bigger
come
than
on
the
to
first
Morero's,
15
but
minutes?
in isolation, those 2 errors, it's really unforgivable.
But
it's the timing.
We're 3-0 down in 15 minutes. That's why we've lost the game. We're 3 down in 15 minutes.
But he has been brought on as a reliable substitute that is there to see out a game or to get us back into a game. And twice he's come on in the space of 12 minutes and he's conceded a couple of goals. And he's got the cheek to say, I think after the last game against Everton, I think he said, I've learnt my lesson, the same old tripe that comes out. And here we are again, less than a month later? And we're back to it.
I'm just I wouldn't hold him solely responsible when you start 15 minutes like that at Anfield.
No, you're right. You're
Russ,
right,
Jason. Sorry.
We've conceded 14 goals in 4 games.
Yep.
And we're sitting here discussing what coulda, woulda, shoulda, as Lee was saying. It's pretty bloody obvious, isn't it, that we can't defend, that as soon as we concede a goal, chances are we're going to concede another one. And we can't see out games at the other end of the pitch, a la Bournemouth. There is a mental problem. I watched Harry Kane being interviewed by Sky, and he said, I don't have any words for it. We just got to try harder. We've got to try and work out what the problem is. But how long do we have to wait for this problem to be solved? And it's such an obvious problem. Why can't we have somebody who actually solves the problem? And unfortunately, it's not going to be Ryan. And I've got no agenda against Ryan. We need a top quality manager coming in, right, who's not confrontational, who just lays down the law before he comes in, give them what they need to rebuild that squad. Because at the end of the day, I'll say it again until I'm blue in the face, there's half a dozen of the first team who are not up to the level of football that we want Spurs to play at. It's so obvious. And somebody's got to come in and they've got to be able to sort that out. Now, that is somebody who's got a track record, who's got some balls, who is, prepared to try and make a name for themselves as a manager. This is a magical opportunity for somebody to come in and actually take our club forward like Poch did all those years ago. A new person. I'm not saying Poch. Obviously, we all think we know where he's going. But all this treading water or going backwards, which we seem to have done since Conte left, incidentally, we just can't allow it. I hate this attitude. Let's just get to the end of the season and regroup. Well, no.
The frightening thing I say there on the screen is, look, Russ, I totally agree. I mean, a 16% win ratio for April.
It's dreadful.
It's horrendous, isn't it? It's absolutely horrendous.
Relegation. It's relegation form. The amount of goals we're shipping, like Russ just pointed out, Anthony, with all the stats. You've got my blue book there, Anthony, have you tonight? Keith obviously coming out with the stats as well. This is relegation form, mate. Yeah, there you go, 57 goals. It's more than Everton and Leicester. Yeah.
Whoever comes in next season, right? We give them a big pat on the back if they keep us up.
Yeah, it is really, really tricky. Yeah. I totally agree. I really do. Look,
the manager comes out and says that the defence is all right. I'm all right with the defence. I don't need to change the defence, the manager says.
Really?
That's what he said, didn't he? Conte came out and said, I don't need to change the defence. So I'm happy with it. You're happy with it? It's like literally one of the worst defences in the Premier League.
Well, I'm glad I asked how you all are to start with. Now we'll try and get in. Everyone's all right then. Lee, let's start with you in terms of the game itself. You know, it was an utterly ridiculous, bonkers game. Spurs did ever so well, as Jason alluded to get it back to 3-3 from 3-0 down. And then Lucas, with quite frankly a gift, handed the chance to Jota within 99 seconds of Spurs going up the other end to equalise, which was absolute scenes in the away end, to then simply lose the game. Jota, who was lucky to have not been sent off, won it in stoppage time. We'll come on to Jota shortly. Ryan Mason has been out already to have his thoughts on Jota. I thought Kane and Son were superb in the second half. I think, again, the irony of that game is Liverpool, all 4 shots on target of that game were in the back of the net for him. So, Lee, just give me I know obviously you've given us your thoughts there generally at the moment, an overview of that game itself, how you felt Spurs performed. Maybe first half was too criminal. And as Lee, just for listeners and audio, shows us the image of...
Jota. Yeah, that is Jota taking Oliver Skipp's head off, right?
Yeah.
And I put it out on social media. I just simply asked the question, is that the guy that scored the winner? I mean, I'm not being funny. That is utterly ridiculous that he's stayed on the pitch. Like, it's not Jota's fault or Skip's fault or whatever's fault that we were 3-0 down right at the beginning. Do you know what I mean? So, but he shouldn't have been on the pitch, should he? I thought Son and Kane played well. Again, with second half FC, and Costa says it on the group all the time. Second half FC, it's been like that most of the season. And then when we wasn't second half FC, we were nothing FC, and that went through the middle when all the carnage was happening. But the fight, the comeback, and all that sort of stuff, it's not good enough. But it still changes the mood. The mood in training is different if we come away there with a 3-3. And it's also not papering over the cracks. I'm a bit like with you, Russ. Like, it's not about let's just get to the end of the season. We've got to try and get as many points as we can and be as good as we can be. Because at the moment, now with I think with us scoring them 3 goals, it means that we still stay above Villa. At one point today, we were below Villa without them even playing because we conceded so many goals. And we're rapidly heading towards a Europa Conference League place. Now, this is, I know it's Jason's worst nightmare and Russ's. It's all of our worst nightmares.
Shut up,
it's true. And the reality of the situation is after today is we can only actually get a maximum of 66 points, which is terrible, really, considering where we should have been. At the beginning of the season, with our best start ever to a Premier League season after 10 or 12 games in the Premier League. So for the return after the World Cup has been absolutely abysmal. The club is in complete disarray. But that's the club issues, and none of them are going away. They are absolutely poignant, and we have to get into that. But on the game today, after that 15 minutes, maybe after half an hour, we was actually pretty good. We created chances. We had a Son chance. We had I know he's hit the post when he was offside, but he still cracked the post with an outstanding shot. He's hit the post again in the second half. He scored again today. He's played pretty well considering where his standards have been this season, and then obviously considering his standards from last season as well. You could say he's had a bad game. Kane again pretty good, got another goal. But some of the build-up play, across the team, there's so many holes and so many gaps and so many you're looking around and you're thinking, like, if you're on the pitch, you're looking around, you're thinking, where's my mate? And he's still not there. The defence is just terrible and rash challenges, panic FC. So, look, from a positive perspective, I just want to roll mine off. I know you'll get into him. King Kane, for me, equaled the second Premier League all-time scorer in Wayne Rooney today with 208 goals. That's going to go under the radar because of the mess the club's in. But this bloke is literally Tottenham Hotspur through and through, one of our, and absolutely loved it. I thought Skip, although a couple of dodgy passes here and there, basically a two-man midfield against a three-man midfield. Most of the time, I thought Skip, again, one of our own, desire and fight and determination. Richie scoring his first Premier League goal, which is in its own right.
I didn't think anyone would shut Lee up, but it had actually happened.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I've just cut off. But yeah, so there is some positives there. But, you know, we just can't keep doing this. And to be honest, a little bit like Harry said in his interview, when Russ mentioned about Harry's interview, you know, we need to improve. We need to improve. We need somebody to walk in this football club and say, enough. This is how we're doing it. This is where we're going. And this is what we're doing. I think the fact, and I will big ourselves up and all of the people that are campaigning in all their various different ways, but I'll big up Last Word on Spurs because this is our show. You know, the fact that we're talking about change and we're talking about culture and we're talking about environment, we've banged on about a plan and the culture for such a long time. Now you've got players like Harry Kane, the captain and vice captain football club, coming out in a Sky Sports interview talking about we've lost our way, we've lost our culture. Maybe there is some messages getting through. Who knows? We've got to keep doing, all of us doing what we're doing in any way, shape, or form to actually try and drive that. But you know, the reality of the situation is that we've got a bunch of players that I think have been coached into just sitting behind the ball, sucking up pressure when they're not good enough to do it. And actually, when they do go, oh, do you know what? We're going to go and have a go and create some chances. And we've gone to Anfield today and we've had 6 or 7 shots on target. I mean, that, you know, most teams don't even do that. And we've done that today. And yes, we've lost, but at least we've created some chances. And again, it's little things that you have to start to build on. So that's my thoughts, Rick.
Russ, let's come over to you. Liverpool obviously running out 4-3 winners. It was a great fight back from Tottenham under difficult circumstances. I think what many will be concerned about is the fact that, as we alluded to in the opening of the show, Russ, it's now 6 points dropped in injury time in the last 7 games. I mean, any team that's got any ambition to be competitive or want to do anything in any league simply cannot do that at any level. No. So how do you summarise that game in general?
Well, I didn't recognise the Spurs team in the second half for most of it. Actually, I thought, blimey, this is a bit more like it. They're attacking. I mean, Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg, he was unbelievable in midfield. Didn't lose the ball.
Yeah, second half, he was phenomenal.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, this is a different team. And this is the problem, isn't it? It's a Jekyll and Hyde of Tottenham. It was kind of a game, really, I think, that summed up our season. Loads of promise, but nothing at the end of it. And, you know, the defence is a major issue. We haven't had a creative midfielder now for 3 or 4 seasons. We desperately need one. Of course, we had an Italian coach, or if we had one when he was there, they would have been on the bench. It's a football culture thing. And it was interesting, like Lee said, to hear Harry Kane, you know, bringing up this subject of you know, the way the club is run and what's happened at the football club. But he also said, wherever I go, I give 110%, which I thought was quite interesting. I happen to think he won't go in the summer, because I think any manager with any ambition at all will know that he's got to build it around Harry Kane and probably Sonny. And if Harry decided to go, I think then we do end up with a Marco Silva or Brendan Rodgers or somebody like that. For me, heaven forbid. But I just think it's the lack of concentration at the beginning of games, clearly towards the end of games, as we've seen particularly recently. But it's a common theme, isn't it, that runs through the way Tottenham Hotspur Football Club play football, particularly this season. And it's a confidence issue, I suspect. It's probably a lack of direction. I mean, I'd love to know off the record from one or two of the players what went on in the Stellini dressing room, because really it was, mini Conte, wasn't it? And he's shuffled off and he's going to do whatever he does over in Italy, probably join Conte again. But, what was said in these games, because he, more than any other, looked like a rabbit in the headlights. I mean, Ryan Mason at least has a bit of passion about him, not Conte-esque, but he shouldn't be doing the job. I'll repeat it again. Ryan shouldn't be doing the job. It's too big a job for him right now. We should have a proper interim manager. And even if it meant bringing back Harry Redknapp for the last 7 or 8 games to steady the ship, or somebody like that, it would have made sense. But, what we're doing is flapping around in the goldfish bowl, and everybody's eating the food and they've gone to a big aquarium tank, and we're left there just going, oh dear, what's going on here? We are an excuse of a football club at the moment. Sorry to say it, hurts me to say it, because it's just not happening on the pitch. It's not happening off the pitch, unless you're a fan of NFL, F1, Beyonce and that kind of stuff. And I kind of get what they're trying to do to get some income in and what have you. But it is a football club, and I fall into that camp. It is a football club, and I want us to play the football that we want to see. And we'd all be prepared to lose a few more games maybe, and probably win a few more, playing in the Spurs swashbuckling style with no fear, and the odd Spursy thing happens. Yeah, at the moment it's turgid to watch. But the second half today, I've got to hold my hands up. It was quite exciting, because you thought, well, if we get a second, we'll get a third, and we did, and it was great. And then that happens at the end, and you just know that is what supporting our football club is like. And, all of us expect something like that to happen.
It's like a throwback to the 90s.
Yeah,
it's like a throwback,
absolutely,
soft underbelly, not really expected to win, but go on, valiant Tottenham might give it a go. Oh, hello, here we go. We might have said,
oh dear. But I agree with Lee. He shouldn't have been on the pitch, Jota. If that had been a tackle at our stadium, he'd have got a red. But that Anfield factor, and it's weird what goes on there, somehow has saved him. He's drawn blood. He's got his studs going down Oliver Skipp's face. And it's not a red. Oh, well, Diogo, I think Mr. Tyler on commentary said, well, he's explaining to the referee that he didn't mean to do it. It doesn't matter that he didn't mean to do it. He did it.
He's done it. It's quite simple. He's done it.
But he scores the winner. Like Lee said, he scores the winner.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else would have done. I'm not crying over spilled milk. There'll be a lot of people watching and listening who will agree it was a red. But let's have some fairness, and there are certain grounds that we go to, other clubs, their fans talk about certain grounds, particularly Old Trafford, where, you'd almost have to get mugged or worse to actually get a free kick sometimes. And, VAR, can they not look at that and go, that's a red?
Well, they most certainly should do. They most certainly can do.
They looked at it and went, oh, no, it's a yellow. It's all right.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It is unbelievable. This is where we are now with football, where anything gets analysed to an absolute minuscule second, and yet the guy's on the pitch and gets the winner. But I thought Jason, Gary Neville kind of put it very, very, very succinctly. How many times has a comeback from 3 goals down to level, but still not lost? Well, sorry. How many times has a team come back from 3 goals down to level, but still not lost a Premier League game? And Gary Neville said only Spurs could do that, or only Tottenham could do that, in reference to him. And I think he's spot on. Only Spurs could do that. Very, 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 very Tottenham-like. So just give me your thoughts on the overall performance, Jake, before we do talk about VAR, Mason's comments after the game, and ultimately what this leaves Tottenham to fight for, if you even want to call it a fight. I think you won't want them to fight for what is to come.
The start was disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. First time we lose the ball, an easy cross. Porro, who's, we're going to spend 40 million on him on the 1st of June or the 1st of July. And yet again, we've seen defensively, it's is no awareness at all. So we gift them a goal straight away. Sonny, even at the start of that, Sonny, I think, loses a 50-50 challenge, just stands there, watches Liverpool. Then he decides he's going to run back, run straight past Trent. We end up with so many bodies around the box. Trent's got, 15 yards of space. Trent, of all people, to pick out a cross. Let Trent have all the space in the world to do it. Porro's asleep at the back post. So it's ridiculous to start like that. I can't even remember the second goal, how it comes about. It was a 1-2 around Dyer. Romero what's his name? Diaz runs across him at the near post, doesn't he? 2-0, and then Romero with yet another rash thing. And I keep hearing he's world class, but I'm yet to be convinced he's world class. Put it that way. And to start a game on the back of Newcastle. Don't forget we conceded in the 7th minute to Man United as well. You know, I mean, you can't give Newcastle, Man United, Liverpool just gifts, Christmas presents at the start of a game. And like I said, that first 15 minutes for me determines the game. I don't want to blame Lucas for it. I don't want to hide behind a referee for probably he should have sent Jota off. But look at ourselves. Look at the ridiculous things, the mistakes that we make in a game before we start hounding referees and things like that. For me, I hate using referees as an excuse. When you've conceded 4 goals, don't look at the referee to try and hang on to it. It masks the mistakes that you've made. And once we got back into it, the funny thing, we had that little period, didn't we, just before half time where Sonny should score. Let's be fair about it. He should score when it comes off the line. He had all the time in the world to pick his spot. We get the goal back. Kulu then has a great chance to score as well, doesn't he? And dithers a little bit and ends up kind of scuffing a shot. And I just thought, second half, I thought Klopp. I kind of thought Klopp would fire them up. I thought if we could have got the second, we'd have had a chance. But I thought they picked their intensity up, and they didn't, Liverpool, and they allowed us to get more and more confidence. We had the double hit the post, didn't we? Son hits a post, and seconds later, Romero hits a post. And once we got the second, I totally expected to get the equaliser. And I'd said in the group, didn't I? Bring Richarlison on. It's Mersey. I know he hasn't scored. Totally. It's Merseyside. He will get booed. And if there's a player that loves living on shithousery, it's Richarlison. And it was no surprise that he was the one that scored. But the big difference was at Leicester last year when Bergwijn scored the equaliser. We went into the net, picked it up, got on the centre circle. And today we've got Richarlison and Son doing the pigeon dance and nobody organising themselves. And look what happens. I mean, at 3-3, go and get the ball in the centre spot and go for it again, because they were absolutely out on their feet, Liverpool. The fact that Henderson and Milner are coming on at Anfield to see a game out, go and do what we did at Leicester. But we over-celebrate a goal. And then we do what Lucas did. And Klopp should be sent ban, get a touchline ban for what you can't run. Why on earth is he running at the 4th official as in the way that he did? I mean, it's just, we see Klopp do this time and time again, and still there's no touchline ban for him. It's his behaviour is despicable, and his behaviour annoys me far more than the Jota challenge does, because it's constant with Klopp. And just because he gives a few fist pumps and a goofy smile and people think he's a character, you can't do what Klopp did today on the touchline. So, but overall, we lose it in the first 15 minutes. I mean, it's our fault that we lose it in the first 15 minutes. There's no one else to blame. And that's what I take from the game, those first 15 minutes, Rick.
Yep, it's hard to take anything else from it, really. Just the nature of how Spurs have somehow lost that. I just want to say on Lucas, whether it be our defending or Lucas Moura at the death, I think Russ, you made this point as well, that ultimately we've got players here that are just simply not up to the adequate level of standard. And as we've seen so many times, these players will cost us, Russ. And you've said that so many times on Last Word on Spurs. They will cost us. I
have, because to my eyes, it's absolutely obvious when you watch our team play game in, game out, particularly for the fans, go home and away. And our fans up at Anfield today, how brilliant were they? When we were 3-0 down, they're singing their hearts out, and it got louder and louder. And this club are lucky to have fans like that, I tell you. But anyway, to go back to the point, I'm not going to, pull out all the names. Every Spurs fan knows the players that really have either had their time or they're never going to quite make the grade. And I'm talking in areas of defence, goalkeeping, midfield. This is a root and branch reconstruction of the playing culture at our club. And what concerns me, I'll come back to it again. I'm like a broken record. I do apologise. The due diligence over the years that has been done on the people we brought into our football club has been nothing short of shocking. And I find it amazing when you've got Daniel Levy, who anyone watching this, if you had a business and you wanted it to make money, you get Daniel Levy in to run it for you because you'd make money. But you wouldn't ask Daniel to run your football club as a chairman. That is a reality. But this man who must have done so much due diligence on every blinking contractor who worked on the new stadium and, saving a bit of money here on that bit of pipeline, that was all done brilliantly for the benefit of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Let's all be fair there. But to actually just trust due diligence to other people, he hasn't got time to do it, Daniel. And we are reaping terrible, terrible decisions now that have been taken, bringing people into the football club, a number of players, some who are not there now, they're out on loan, some are in the first team, some can't get in the first team, but they're worth an awful lot of money. And I find it so frustrating when a lot of our rivals seem to be able to buy players cheaper, better players, find them, make money on them. What you're supposed to do at a football club. And I just think that we are in such a mess that, we're going to be tested more than we've ever been tested, I think, over the summer, because we know what's coming. So-and-so might be coming. It started already. Oh, no, they're not coming now, but maybe Spurs are going to talk to this manager. And I just hope we don't get to a situation where, we're 90 odd days without a manager and a rash decision is made. And the future is so critical now, whether it's with Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis and Enoch, I don't know, but they didn't pay much money for it in real terms. If they can sell it for 4 billion, if I was them, I'd definitely do that and let somebody come in and have a go, because there is a feeling in my head and my heart that maybe Daniel and the current owners have run their course. I'm not going to stand outside with a placard and chant Levy out and obscenities at him. I think that even he, surely, an intelligent bloke like that, must be thinking, it could be time to call it a day, this. How much money do you want to make as a company, Enoch? Really? And
I just wonder on that.
I just think that there's got to be more than change on the pitch. That's all.
I just wonder on that point, Rick, if I may, with Russ, what Russ said there, is whether or not Daniel and the current board think that they can turn it around. Do you know what I mean? There's an ego there maybe to say, actually, I think I can turn this around. We should be being able to turn this around, because there's absolutely no doubt that something needs to be completely different at this club through the culture. I just want, if I may, Rick, I know I'm going off script a little bit, but quick shout out, Russ, to somebody that we both know very, very well. He's just texted me to say, please pass my regards on to Russ, James Motley. James.
Yes. He's in Dubai with his Motley crew. Yes,
James. The Motley crew. And the other worry that we've got, viewers and listeners, and obviously lads on the panel, is I've just been beavering away, working out some statistics, right, to put in the blue book. Otherwise, Anthony will be battering me on the blue book. He's been very good. The average points total to get the top 6 in the Premier League over the last 10 seasons is 63.7. Now I'm worried, because if you don't get 63 points, you're kind of not going to get top 6. And that means your favourite competition.
Don't
Jason,
say it. Don't say it, please. Don't say it.
This is the worry now, because you're worried. There's only been 2 seasons that are 58 or 59 points gets you top 6. The rest of them are way over 62, 63, 68, 69. It's a worry, Rick. Are we going to get that many points? There's only 4 games left. We can only get a maximum of 66.
I think everyone wants it to end. I think we're at a point where no one really even cares. I do just want to just touch on one thing. We'll come back to Lucas later in the show, but I don't know whether it's now just come to a time where Lucas, that, you know, when you lose points against Everton, Liverpool, and he's in isolation, the reason behind those mistakes, Jay, just on that point. And we appreciate, obviously, Mason is very, very short in terms of options that he can bring off the bench. I just wonder whether maybe you do look to maybe give some of the opportunities to some of the younger players who got on there, the likes of Mundell, the likes of players that just have got an opportunity to really feel what it's like to wear the shirt. And maybe some will say, and Batterby saying, well, hold on, you're at Anfield. To do that to a teenager or a youngster isn't fair under the circumstances. But I just wonder, with Spurs giving away points the way they are, and unfortunately Lucas being definitely culpable for Everton and Liverpool in the loss of points, I just wonder that. I really, really do. And again, it's one of those things, Lee, as you've said there, to come over to you, Jace, that the season has basically now boiled down to the battle with Villa, who we have got to play for 7th, and your dreaded competition of Europa Conference League.
Brighton as well.
I just wonder now.
Fighting, Rick. Brighton are right in that mix. And you could argue that they're going to go above us, and like you say, like you're saying, we're battling almost for that 7th or 8th. Brighton they've got 3 games in hand on us, and they are 2 games in hand on us. They're going to go.
I just want to know, before we do go for the first break, I'm just intrigued to know what everyone would want right now before we go for that first break. We're going to bring Ryan Mason's comments into the show. Jason, let me ask you, I know you don't want to use that or talk about that competition, but out of what's left now, what do you genuinely want Spurs to do in terms of the league? What do you want to happen?
I would hope that we'd get that Europa spot, but the problem is, if we got that Europa spot, I would really like to see us have a go next year at
it. Just for clarification, you're
so
saying Europa spot. You are referring to Europa League. Europa League, right?
Europa League spot. I don't want to be anywhere near the Gibraltar Cup, where you play, you know, Malta FC and teams from Gibraltar and the Faroe Islands, sheep shearing clubs and things like that. That is not European competition that I'm in the least bit interested in. So if we can't get 6th, then I hope we finish 8th. But because it's just, look how the last one ended. We ended up getting kicked out of it. That's how bad a competition it was. We actually got kicked out of a European competition. But, you know, if you can go to Villa, but our away form is such, can you see us going to Villa and winning?
Absolutely not. I mean, I know they narrowly lost. I know they narrowly lost to Man United, and even Brentford at home. That last home game of the season, I dread that. Yeah.
And if Leeds are away or down, and that crowd is intensive, I mean, Leeds are a mess. But if they need something on the last days, but no, I would like us to get the Europa League, because I think it's a competition that in the second half, when you reach the knockout stage, it's a good competition. There's proper teams in it. There has been this year, but we know the problem is that if we're in that knockout stage and next year we're sitting 8th, 6 points off, and we got a game in on Sunday against, I don't know, Brighton on a Sunday, it will be, well, if we win that, we're right on the edges of the top 4 race, so we'll throw it, rather than thinking go and win it and get the place that way. So, you know, for me, if I trusted us to have a go at Europa next year, because I don't think we'll reach the top 4 next year, if we had a real go at it, I'd like to. But if we're not going to have a go at it, what's the point of being in it?
Russ, let me ask you, Spurs currently at the moment, they sit 6th in the Premier League. They're 2 points off now, 5th place Liverpool, and Spurs have played a game more. When you start to look down that league, Villa we've got to play. We're on level points with Villa, same amount of games. We've got Villa, of course, coming up as well, away. I tell you what, Villa's home has been formidable, really, since Unai Emery's got the job. Yeah. And then you look at Brighton, 52 points, so 2 points off Tottenham, but do now have 3 games in hand. How do you see it playing out, Russ, between now and the end of the season in terms of what's remaining with those 4 games? And what do you genuinely want Spurs to do in terms of the league?
We are the 6th biggest club in the Premier League. Therefore, anything above a 6th finish is overperforming, technically, for us. And we've overperformed for quite some time. And that's great, by the way, because just because we're the 6th doesn't mean to say we can't actually finish 4th, 3rd, 2nd as we did one year. The problem is no Champions League, the quality of player that we can attract with a new manager is going to be difficult. Europa League football might soften the blow. I mean, the Premier League is a big attraction. London is a big attraction, as we know. Europa League football wouldn't, I don't think, come into a top player's thinking. They want to be in the Champions League. That has gone, as Jason said. Top 4 and next season, I think, is going to be incredibly difficult to get into the top 4. But historically, over recent years, we all know the reason why we're in the position that we are, but we've got to try and look forward. I personally would take a Europa League spot, although I hate Thursday night football because we end up playing all our games on a Sunday. Teams in the Europa League and the Premier League tend not to do as well as the ones in the Champions League who play, either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. But the attraction of the Europa League, for me, is if you can win it, you're in the Champions League. So I'm thinking, well, I don't think we're going to finish top 4 unless something miraculous happens next season. So let's have a go at the Europa League if we're in it and get into the Champions League that way. I mean, this is a massive blow for Daniel Levy and the club that we're not going to be in the Champions League because financially it's part of the plan. That's why he brought Conte in. Get me Champions League football when we all know what happened. So I think we might at best finish 6th and be in the Europa League. But I'm with Jason. I do not want to go to the sheep shearing clubs and what have you. I mean, it isn't a European competition. Jason's absolutely right. It's a complete and utter waste of time. And, for us to be in it really is even more damning. So 8th or 6th.
I know I laughed at it last time, but it's the Johnson's paint. It's the Checkatrade trophy. West Ham might well win it this year and they'll celebrate because they've never done anything for donkey's years. But come on, the Europa League, the Checkatrade version. Sorry, not for
what I would say is, with respect to that Europa Conference League coming over to you, Lee, I think that Europa Conference League is more, I think, geared towards, in the most politest way I put this, teams that are looking to kind of build some heritage, some history, that are trying to essentially, if you understand where I'm coming from, they're kind of like, again, the mid-table teams in Serie A or La Liga, or teams that are looking to try and enjoy their first trip of European action. I think for a club like Tottenham, that people will laugh when I say this, that do have a heritage and a history of performing at the highest level in terms of European competition. I think, for Spurs being in the Conference League is a complete and absolute, no-go. That's how I feel about it. But again, me being a Spurs fan, if we do end up in it, I want us to give absolutely everything. When I read that league table up to you, Lee, before we go for our break of the show, what do you generally think is achievable between now and the end of the season?
I think top 6. I think I did a predictor, didn't I? I sent it across in last one as WhatsApp group, and I think I had us finishing 6th in the predictor. Spurs' all-time Premier League record, by the way, since it started 32 years, is top 5. Well, we were fifth in the Premier League, and that's skewed a little bit because Manchester City used to play in Division 2 or Division 4, whatever it was. And they've played 200 games less than us, which is what, best part of 4 seasons. But the reality is we're top 5, right? So that's where we are. That's our level. We are 5th in the Premier League out of all the years it's played. I think to give some balance to the affectionately known Checkatrade trophy, as Jason calls it in Europe, I think that when you look back before the Champions League was the Champions League, it is the European Cup. We had 3 cup competitions in Europe, and we had the Cup Winners' Cup, the UEFA Cup, and the European Cup. And winning the UEFA Cup or the Cup Winners' Cup wasn't a disgrace. Now, you'd argue to me, well, that's because you had some really good teams in there. It wasn't because it was a third-rate cup. The Cup Winners' Cup was still a good European trophy to win, for sure, back then. And I suppose the point I'm making is the calibre of teams that are in it. So in the Europa Conference League, if you're playing teams, for example, like Sevilla, for example, like Roma, for example, like Tottenham, for example, like any Premier League club, actually, because they can turn any Premier League club can turn any other Premier League club over. So the calibre of them, if you're going to sheep shearing clubs, I get your point. But actually, over a period of time, that Europa Conference League will have better teams in it, right? And therefore, it becomes a more prestigious competition. I don't want to be in the Europa Conference League, not because of sheep shearers, because I want to be in the Champions League. I want my football club to be in the best possible competition And actually, for the Europa Conference League, I actually think that we would do better. And this isn't defeat; it's just my personal opinion. As we're rebuilding this club, I actually think we'd do better with a year out of Europe, right? Not financially, not with ticket prices, and not, for the European history of this of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and not for the fans travelling around. I get all of that, but I actually think, from a footing perspective, I actually think it could benefit us, and I think it could benefit us because of we haven't got the squad. Or clearly, no one can argue this, right? We haven't got the players or the squad or the mentality to go after 4 competitions every year. We just haven't got it, and we can't compete at that level. But what we potentially could compete at is some domestic cups, right? Domestic cups, and try and build ourselves up into the league. And that's why I come back to the culture and the plan and the vision. Some people, and I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, because part of me feels this as well. Some people will say, no, you should go for every single competition and try and win every single competition. But if you've got a massive skills gap in whatever it is that you're doing, and it's physically or mentally impossible to win every competition, why are you trying to win every competition? And it's a little bit like setting out your stall at the beginning of the season or over a 3-year plan and saying, we're going to win this, we're going to go after this, this, and this, and we're going to win the Premier League in 3 years or 4 years' time. And that's the vision and the plan. So I know I've gone off piece, but for me, it makes all of that relevant. It's not just about I don't want to be in it or I do want to be in it. But incidentally, just quickly, because I know you want to go for a break, I did actually ask this question to nearly 4,000 people on social media because they did a poll, and 40% of that 4,000 people said, no Europa Conference League, I want to finish 8th. So against 32% of people actually that said we want Europa League, 3% of people wanted Europa Conference. So again, just giving you a bit of balance on what our thoughts. And just quickly, Rick, what do you think? Like, you don't want Europa Conference League, do you?
Well, do you know what? I just think before Jace comes in, I think Jace is biting to come back into the conversation there. I would be in favour of having a year completely out of Europe, as you said, to kind of allow the squad to be rebuilt under a manager that has a clear identity and philosophy. But I also share Russ's concerns that we're already getting managers that kind of coming out and just feels I'm worried that we're ending up with another situation where it's not going to be done as early as what many would need it and want to be done. And that's my biggest concern on that. Jason, let me bring you back in there.
Well, I was going to say, before anyone says, oh, you shouldn't look down at it, there's 2 things from the checker trade that I can remember when we was in it. The first one was a dog running on the pitch and having a shit in the middle of a pitch during a game. And I'm thinking, what kind of competition is that? And the second one was the team that had no numbers, so drew numbers with a Sharpie on their backs of their shirts. So that's the type of competition. I'm sorry, give me 25 Audi Cups over one checker trade trophy. It is not a competition fit for a club. I don't think any Premier League club should be taking it seriously. And like I say, if West Ham win it, because they've never won anything for 40 years, good luck to them. But I won't be in the least bit bothered that they've won a trophy where a dog runs on the pitch and has a shit.
I'm going to go with this show. I don't want to come after that. Russ, I'm going to come around to you. Let me get your thoughts from Ryan Mason. Here's a great point. That's why we love Jason, last one on Spurs. Ryan Mason's been out after the game. He's spoken to a number of different media outlets. He told Spurs TV, we're devastated. I speak on behalf of everyone involved and everyone watching at home. It's difficult to take at this moment in time. He told esteemed colleagues of Sky and his post-match press conference that ultimately for him at this moment in time, in regards to the non-sending off of Jota, who went on to score the winner, honestly, it's probably the clearest red card you will ever see on a football pitch. I need an explanation. It endangered the opponent, skipped knee stitches, and Jota has scored the goal when he shouldn't be on the pitch. In regards to the game itself, he said, really hard to put it into words, impossible to take. When you literally give the opposition 4 goals without having to earn it, it makes it very difficult. It makes it impossible to win games. Big words there from Ryan Mason, who, again, if that was Stellini or Conte saying that, everyone maybe be up in arms. But I've got to say, I think that was a spot-on almost paragraph there of essentially how he feels the way this team is performing. And he's right. If you give away 4 goals like that, you're not going to get any kind of results, are you, Russ?
Some years ago, I worked for about 6 months every Sunday with Ryan Mason, on a talk sport program that I used to host, and it was called The Final Word. It was the last look back at all the Premier League fixtures. And Ryan came in and he was a very quiet, sort of nervous guy. But within a couple of weeks, he was turning into one of the best pundits and thinkers on the game that we ever had on the show. So I want to clarify, this man knows football as a thinker, tactics, and obviously as a player, right? You said earlier, Rick, about younger players at Tottenham, you know, it wouldn't be fair to throw them in at Anfield. But I'm saying to you, it's not fair to throw Ryan Mason in at Anfield in that position. He doesn't want the job. He definitely doesn't want to be in it. He's just been asked to do it. And because he is that kind of human being, he's gone, okay, fine. So now he's there on the touchline. He's watching Klopp running up and down, and incidentally, Klopp celebrating the winner, apparently very badly pulled his hamstring and was limping down the tunnel. Well, wow, the god of football got him back. But he's absolutely right when he's talking about the red card incident with Jota. In my opinion, no question it was a red card. And then he gets a winning goal. But he also is right that you just cannot start games like that. And what makes it even more worrying is that he would have had that conversation with them after Newcastle, even though Stellini was in charge. He would have had that conversation with them after Manchester United, and it still happens. So are they not listening to him? It looks like they're not, actually, because in no way Ryan would tell them to defend in the way that they defended. So, you know, it's all very well, Ryan, his best mate is Harry Kane and all this, and I'm sure they are really good mates, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, nobody on the pitch for Spurs, I don't see any of our players taking responsibility when the chips are down. And I was there at Newcastle, and I watched that horror show in the flesh, close to the edge of the pitch, and I looked, not one Tottenham player, including Lloris, the club captain, including Harry, when it was all going wrong in the first half, actually was getting excited with the players, shouting at them, gesturing. Stellini was sitting in his little hut. I mean, wow. And people are surprised by capitulations when it's quite obvious there isn't the passion, the belief, the confidence amongst the players or the people who are managing the team. And Ryan Mason, if it goes wrong in the next game, is he going to get fired before the end of the season? Who's going to come in then? Roland Rat? I mean, it's a joke. He shouldn't be doing it. And I really like Ryan. I've got nothing against him. It's just that he isn't ready to manage Tottenham Hotspur Football Club for a few games. And for somebody to think that he's going to be okay, I think it's a dereliction of duty. Yet again.
I also said this in a week, Russ, that, I mean, coming over to you, Macca, I said that for me, I was really concerned about what this will do to Ryan's confidence, not just having to take this period, but also being around periods where there's been losing situations under Mourinho, under Stellini, under, of course, Conte as well, Nuno, to put it in there politely as well. It does worry me that Ryan's been around a culture where almost losing amongst the players has become acceptable. I don't want that for Ryan because he's clearly a talented guy, as Russ has alluded to. I want him to go out, earn his right, go to League One, go to League Two, take a club on, be a manager in his own right, and not be put through this utter shit show. Because I totally agree with Russ that the 4 goals that we conceded today, I don't think they're down to Ryan. I don't think they're down to him whatsoever. He can only do so much when they cross that white line. And, you know, in his post-match press conference, he said, the team that created the most chances lost the game. We were the better side by a country mile. And I think he's definitely right in the second half. And you can't say that he's not had an effect on this Tottenham team because under Stellini and Conte, there's no way this team, Lee, in reference to the second half, would be coming down from 3-0, as also Jason alluded to bring it level to 3-3. No one would have done that. We'll discuss the winner later on. But on the back of what's been a difficult week for him, he's had United and Liverpool. He's not even had 7 days yet to work with the players. Do you have anything to say on Ryan Mason at the moment, given obviously what's come out in the press conferences?
Yeah, I think fair play to him. Like, whether or not he wants the job full time or not, whether or not he's going to get it or not, I've got my own opinions on that. But the reality of the situation is that he is there doing, like, stepping in against Manchester United, against Liverpool, as you said. Let's be honest about it, viewers and listeners, and everyone here. This is probably the worst period in our club for a long time. I mean, this is horrendous. I mean, I was in the Champions League final. I was in Madrid, and I didn't cry, actually, to be fair, because it happened so early on that we were going to lose a game, with against Liverpool and the handball. But obviously massively disappointed, hugely upset, like in the stadium. And, this now, how we're feeling every single week, it's relentless. It is relentless every week. It's not even like it's just a one-off and you can, all right, so we got to a final, we didn't win it. Oh, well, let's move on. It's literally the next game comes around, bang, you've got it in your face again. Next game, bang, it's happening again. I mean, it's relentless. So to be fair to him, to step in and do what he's, trying to do what he's doing, trying to get the spirit, at the end of the day, we lost, didn't we, today? We got absolutely nothing out of it. So my wife come in early and she said, it could have been worse. I said to her, well, could it? Like, we lost the game. It could have been what she was referring to. It could have been a Newcastle, right? It could have been a 6-1, could have absolutely been ruined. But is that a little win? I'm not even sure it is. On who we be and where we want to go. Do you know what I mean? We've lost it. So for me, I think fair play to him for doing what he's doing. He does love the club and he does know the club really well. And he's a rookie in charge. I mean, this guy took charge of a League Cup final. He was in charge for 6 days and then he had a cup final to do. So he's got some experience, even if it was from that situation. So I don't know if you want my opinion on if he should get the job or not. I gave that last week.
No, I think we've done that. Yeah, I think we've done that for now.
Rick,
yeah,
I
think. Go on, Russ.
There was somebody called Dean who said, "Don't tar Ryan Mason with the ENIC brush." None of us have done that, and that is important. Ryan Mason is paid by ENIC, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, but we're not saying that Ryan thinks about football in the same way that other members of the hierarchy at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club do. No one is saying that. We're actually saying, I think we're saying, really, it's unfair to expect him to do the job. It's unfair to put him there in Anfield.
I totally agree. Yeah,
he's going to learn from something today that, boy, you've got to be lucky to win at Liverpool, whoever he manages, for the reasons we've discussed. But this is not about having a go at Ryan. My principal point is, and I'll make it again, I don't think he should be doing the job that he's doing because I don't think he's experienced enough.
I don't know if it's unfair to say that. I mean, Jace, you were very earlier critical of Jurgen Klopp's reaction after Liverpool got the winner. I mean, he was already booked for that, just to be clear. But then he's come out in his post-match press conference and said, and take the swipe at Tottenham, saying Spurs have to play better football. They just can't counter-attack. They have to play better football with that team. Is that fair?
Maybe, but worry about your own team. You got the greatest defender that's ever walked the planet doing the splits against Ivan Perisic. So, look at the faults of your own team, mate. I mean, if Tottenham aren't much of a side, how the hell are you conceding 3 at home to them? Worry about your own problems. Liverpool are what today? They're 5th. They've been battered by Brightons and teams like that this year. Worry about yourself, mate. Don't have a go at us. We know what mess we're in, but, it doesn't excuse the Liverpool's shambolic season, does it? They were 2-0 up to Real Madrid and capitulated and lost by 5. So, no, sort yourselves out. They're one of the only teams that haven't beat Chelsea this season, aren't they? That's how poor Liverpool are.
Even we've done that, quite remarkably. I'm not sure if we play it now, we would, but there you go. Well, listen, everyone's beating Chelsea at the moment. Yeah, it is absolutely insane. Just
on Mason, probably the one disagreement I'd say with Russ is I think he does want the job and he should want the job because when that's not to say how much you get it, but you should want that job because you never know, you may, if the next person comes in and does a magnificent success of it, you'll never get the opportunity to have the job again. And a bit like when Lampard took Chelsea, despite the circumstances, if that's your club and you have a chance to run that club, whether you think you're right for it, whether you think it's the right time, you can't turn that job down. You can't. I mean, us four, no, we're never qualified to take the job at Tottenham. But if Daniel Levy phoned any of the four of us up and said, look, do you want the job? Are you honestly telling me we wouldn't say yes? So I think, I actually liked the fact in his press conference, he openly said, I'm ready for it and I'd like the job. I actually quite like what he says to the media. I think his media responses are excellent, but that's the only disagreement. He's certainly nowhere near the top of my list, but there's some people on the list that I think I'd sooner have Mason in charge than some on the list as well.
Do you want to come back onto that, Russ? Do you want to come back and respond to that?
Well, I think it's a reasonable point. Some people may find this hard to believe. If in the summer it was a choice between Brendan Rodgers and Ryan Mason, for me, I'd go for Ryan.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what sums up, doesn't it, at the moment? It really, really does. What we are going to do, look, we are going to go for a very, very late break of this show. We're an hour in. Thank you so much for all your support. We've got over 1,200 of you watching us live. Again, unbelievable support for Last Word on Spurs on the back of having to watch our team for an hour and a half to then come and watch us and listen to us. So thank you for all of your incredible support. We always say the show is made up by all your incredible viewers and listener questions that come in. A lot of them are statements here on Last Word on Spurs. Just going to read a few of these out. And whilst I do that, I'm going to share for our watching audience the stats of today. Again, what we said at the top of the show, the Liverpool, all 4 shots on target, all 4 goals, which is such, as Gary Neville said, a Tottenham thing, isn't it? Quite frankly, how they did get away from that. The possession is, again, a massive worry for Tottenham. I know Liverpool, and they do dominate possession at Anfield, 68% to Tottenham's 32 there. So some of the stats that we've had in, Jim Bob Stodd Spurs says, we didn't win, but I am proud of our second half response. Ben Spurs says, I didn't tweet after Richie's goal because I knew exactly that what was coming and that we'd F it up. Cram says, why us? Why us? Why are we always messing it up? I just can't wait for Enoch to sell. Phil Loveday says, what exactly has Mason done to turn the spirit around? For me, it's been his own passion and DNA, which is Tottenham through and through. He's been amazing. His passion is Tottenham, whereas Conte's was simply about winning. There is a difference. Interesting there. James Land says, change is needed 100%. Our next manager needs to be cleared. So much deadwood from the squad. It's very easy. We need defenders who can mark a player and can actually make a tackle. And Steve Combo says that game sums up Tottenham Hotspur. Completely agree. As always, feel free to send us your questions after the game at Last Word on Spurs. What we are going to do, we want to quickly go through the starting lineup of the game itself. Lee, I'll come round to you for this if you don't mind. So Ryan Mason made 2 changes ahead of this one, in which we saw Fraser Forster again starting goal as Hugo Lloris remained out for injury. Ben Davies came into the team in place of Clement Longley to join Christian Romero, Eric Dyer in that back line. Porro, Perisic kept their respective places in the wing-back positions. Højbjerg and Skip were once again Mason's midfield partnership of choice, with Pat Matassar having to settle for a spot on the bench. In attack, Kulusevski was given the nod to start alongside Harry Kane and Son in the front 3. And as a result, Richarlison was dropped down to the bench on his return to Merseyside. That team read Forster, Romero, Dyer, Davis, Porro, Højbjerg, Skip, Perisic, Kulusevski, Kane, Son, with a bench of Austin, Sanchez, Tanganga, Longley, Sarr, Devine, Lucas, Richarlison, Zanjuma. Lee, it's again always a topic here on Last Word on Spurs. Team came out. What did you make of it?
The Porro mullet. The Porro mullet is still on there. I'm absolutely loving it. Look, I think it's not. The Kulusevski thing was an interesting one for me. I agree with Jason, what he said in our group, and he's just said in the show before about Richarlison going back to Merseyside. I thought he might have started, considering he started him as well in midweeks. But maybe, again, we don't know what's going on with the red zones or the yellows. Enough zonage to start the game. And again, it's absolute suicide going to a back 4 with these current players and the way they've been coached over the last 4 or 5 years, which I think Ryan Mason's alluded to. So I'll be happy with a team as you can be. I think the only major change you could have made, which we actually saw in game, was to put 3 in midfield. To sacrifice a Kulusevski, for example, have same in Con, I was going to say, Son and Kane up top. and then essentially have an extra man in midfield. Because I still think some of them don't get me wrong, the defence is shocking, but I still think some of them key gaps are happening because of the midfield is just not strong enough and good enough. And I think that, when Højbjerg started to, I don't want to say run the game in the second half, but he had a much, much better second half than he did in the first half. Was there any coincidences there? There was an extra body in midfield for majority of that second half. So I think that you could have maybe played a 3-5-2. But what's so obvious to me, and this is what Martin Tyler and Gary Neville, they have a bantering us in commentary as well, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. We are the banter club to a lot of people. And they made a comment about kind of, the amount of gaps and spaces. I mean, what they were saying was correct. But when you look at it, sometimes we had 5 as a back 5 and there was still space. Like how are you getting space with a back 5? It's like it is, and this is the thing, it's do I twist or do I stick? It's like the players almost don't know, and that is that, I suppose this is a question to all the viewers and listeners and people out there, is that because we're in a flux at the moment in coaching, so we're changing it and we don't really know. But what's clear to me is the last 5 years we've had managers Jose, Nuno and Conte that just want to sit behind the ball. We've watched this week in, week out. And Gary Neville mentioned in commentary, but we see this every week in, week out, us fans. And it's really difficult to move that now and shift that. And whoever comes in moving forward, if it's Mason, if it's Nagelsmann, if it's please be Poch, he still has not signed. Well, it hasn't been announced. But, whatever, whoever it is that comes in, they're going to have to undo all of that for the last 5 years. It's a little bit like an election, isn't it? Like you have a Labour government or you have a Conservative government in every 4 years they get a vote. They get 4 years, they have to change everything the previous government did. And then you vote them in again for the next 4 years, because actually 4 years they've just been sorting out the mess that the other government had. So you now have had 8 years of them, and now you're getting a bit peed off with it now, aren't you? You're getting a bit like, oh, do you know what? Maybe we need to change. So the third time around, you vote in a new government, and then they do the same thing. Oh, actually, I've said 8 years of the other government, we have to reverse what it's doing. And this is the problem at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, is it comes back to all the things that we've talked about so many times on the show. So I think the actual starting lineup or the positioning of where it is, look, let's be frank, absolutely woeful defending, shocking start, awful, absolutely awful, like Newcastle, like Manchester United, like today. But we have proved last season that we can play this system. We've proved in fits and starts, and certainly in second halves this season, that we can play this system. So I think it was probably the right system to play. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I'm not going to put us all through the pain for discussing all 3 goals. I'm going to wrap them into one, if that's okay, Jason. You're going to have to take them all on here, so apologies for this. The first goal we see Jones in acre of space, and at the back post there to net is Alexander-Arnold. I mean, look, neither Porro nor Kulusevski. Sorry, let me just refrain on that. Jones in acre of space at the back post, and Alexander-Arnold picked him out. Neither Porro nor Kulusevski anywhere near him. So easy for Liverpool. The second goal, Gakpo was allowed to run in behind, and quite frankly, look, I'll be honest, Diaz wanted it more than Romero from the pullback, and he doubled Liverpool's lead. And for the second consecutive away game in a row, Spurs have been 2 goals down within 6 minutes. For the away fans to sing, it's only 2-0, how shit must you be? Spurs fans not losing their humour are going 2 goals down. Penalty for Liverpool, Romero recklessly diving in and bringing Gakpo down in the area, and the referee immediately put into the spot for Liverpool to be 3-0. Look, our defenders, Jace, we know they're poor. Romero, I have to say, since winning the World Cup, and I'm not using that as a reason, he has gone off the boil. I know you've always been very much, Jace, hesitant to use that word World Class about Romero. But there's just something majorly wrong in his game right now. I think he's lacking motivation. I think he looks around him and sees the absolute mess and the shambles, and just quite simply isn't up to the task at the moment. So give me your thoughts on the way in which we capitulated to be 3-0 down. And are you surprised at how Spurs showed a response after what we saw a week before, where we went on to concede 6? We need to unmute you, Jace. I'm so sorry. We've got you, Jace.
Sorry. I mean, they are horrendous individual areas, but they're also areas as a team. Communication has got to be right. And I made the point about communication in midweek, didn't I? Where players are not switched on. And, Eric Dyer's goal to Rashford, I know we're going back 4 days to Rashford's goal. And you're thinking Eric Dyer's weakness is that ball over the top, he's got no pace. Rashford's strength is he's got pace to burn. So if that becomes a foot race, there's only one winner in that. And yet Romero's 30 yards in front of Eric Dyer. There's no awareness to look over his shoulder and think, Jesus, my mate could be in big trouble here if we lose the ball. Eric Dyer's not looking at Romero, screaming at him, hold on, I might need some bloody help in a minute. So there's no awareness of each other. Porro's not aware. There's no communication going on between them where they're digging each other out and saying, look, I need some help here. Eric Dyer pushes into midfield, big space behind. Why isn't Ben Davies shouting there? You can't go in there. There's no... It's just like, I think this is what Conte's getting at in selfish players. It's no one person to blame for it all. And then the other thing is that you've got, and I keep saying it, the best teams defend from the front. And our front two do no amount of any defence at all. So, I'm watching Virgil van Dijk, who's so comfortable on the ball. I'm watching Trent in midfield, so comfortable on the ball. And the ball is just played into them. There's no attempt to stop the ball going in there. There was a moment today where Alisson dribbled it out the penalty area and Kane was the closest to him. Go and press him. But he just allows Alisson to come back. So immediately we have got teams like with 2 extra bodies, the other side of our front two. There's always a spare man in midfield. If we put a third man in midfield, you'll still get the centre half. You'll still get Fabinho. You'll still get Trent wandering in there totally on their own. So you've got to defend from the front. But and this is the big conundrum, I think, for any manager. Those two have so much quality going forward. Kane, like I say, Kane's the best player we've had in the Premier League era. He's arguably the best player we've had. He's certainly one of the most intelligent we've had. But until we can find a way where the weaknesses in those two's defending don't destabilise the team, I don't know how we move forward, because it does destabilise. We are constantly outnumbered in midfield, however many players we put in there. And it is a big problem, and it stems from there. And then players get pulled out of position because you're outnumbered. And then instead of somebody saying, no, you can't go, like Romero in midweek leaving Dyer, they just play as individuals. They make their own decisions. And that's the problem. It's a whole team thing that defence badly as a team. Because you look at how Liverpool defend, the work that Salah did when he chased back a couple of times today, didn't he? Chased back, picking balls off. We know that Mane and Firmino were brilliant at it. But Son and Kane just don't do it. And therefore, if you're not closing, the pressure just builds. And we have got to solve that problem. And, in the Kane, does he go, does he stay conundrum, even if he stays, we have got to sort a way out to defend with those two.
No pressure, Jace. You're just getting calls for being the manager now. Not sure you want this job.
Yeah.
Big problem.
Okay, go on, Jace. You can do it. I mean, the thing is, it's a lot of this is down to the players. It's not down to the manager.
Oh, it is.
It's totally down to the players. And, they picked it up in the second half, gave it a good go because they suddenly realised they were going to have to refund a load of tickets again and then buck their ideas up. We cannot keep blaming coaches. Oh, they haven't been coached this, they haven't been coached that. These players are very, very experienced footballers. They must see what's going on.
Of course,
so they're choosing not to do it.
I must have said on that point, many are having a go at me for digging out Romero. I'm not suggesting Romero is the only problem. Eric Dyer, again, if that guy's given a new contract, there's protests regarding the owners. There'll be protests how Eric Dyer is still a Tottenham player if he's given and awarded a new contract. I'm not for one saying here it's all Romero's fault. I've got no doubt that with a capable and able deputy next to him, you will see the improvement of Romero. But I'm just talking about as an individual, we should be expecting more. We should be expecting more from Pedro Porro. We should be expecting more from Eric Dyer. We should be expecting more from every one of those defenders that are playing at the moment. More should be expected. I am not singling out Christian Romero, just to be very, very clear here. He is a talented player. It was one of the reasons why last season Tottenham got into the top 4. But again, people don't seem to like the fact that some of their favourite players are being dug out, but he needs to be because he hasn't been good enough. He has not been good enough, whether you like it or not. And Spurs now, they've conceded a league high of 13 goals in the opening 15 minutes of Premier League matches this season. Well, only 3 teams have ever conceded more in this period in a single campaign. Wolves in 11-12 with 16. Ipswich in 94-95, 15. Sheffield United in 93-94, 14. That's how far you've got to go back to see how bad we are doing in those opening 15 minutes of games. Only Leeds, Forest, Leicester, Southampton have conceded more goals than Tottenham this season. And again, we make that joke, with Tottenham that almost a year ago, people were saying how good and how positive Spurs' XG was generally in the second half of the season. Liverpool, to some degree, we allowed them to dominate us and keep going at us. And I mean, 15, 20 minutes. And you can't win any single game like that, playing like that. And, you can argue that it was Liverpool's utter brilliance of attack and ruthless nature. And Spurs were in those first 15 minutes already thinking of the case, this is damage limitations. And Lee, coming over to you, our first touch in the Liverpool box came after 29 minutes. 29 minutes it took for us to get into the Liverpool box. And look, to be fair, we got our goal eventually. Perisic did well to chop inside Virgil van Dijk, stood up across to Kane to volley in. He's now got 208 Premier League goals, moving him second in the all-top scorers and level list with Wayne Rooney. But I do wonder, Lee, the more this goes on, how can Harry Kane genuinely want to stay at this football club? Do you have a view on that very quickly, Lee, before we discuss and dissect the rest of this utter shit show?
Yeah, I just want to come back on a couple of them things, actually, if I can. So I disagree a little bit with Jason Russ with regards to it is just down to the players. Because I think for the last 3.5 years, maybe 4 years, but for the last 3.5 years since Jose walked into his football club, every single one of them players has been coached to not press. Every single one of them. Every single one of them has been coached under Nuno not to press, and under Conte, don't press. So if I do my day job every single day, and the people that are around me running the business or running whatever it is that everyone's doing every day, drumming into me, don't do this, do it like that. Don't do this, do it like that. Don't do this, do it like that. For 3.5 years, I can guarantee you now, we will be brainwashed, if you like, into doing what that is. And I do take the point. I'm not totally disagreeing with him saying that it's not a player's fault. I'm not sticking up for players at all. What I'm saying is that I think that from a coaching perspective, if we got a coaching that was a proactive coach, that is a front foot coach, that doesn't sit behind the ball and park the buses, that actually go and coach them to actually go forward, we would get more pressing from the front. We would get more defence, because I do agree with Jason and Russ that the whole team needs to defend. And at the moment, they're not at all. The communication, all the things that you guys said there, I agree with that. But I think that to level it at one player or two players or whatever, or even the high press piece, it partly is because of the coaching. Like, you can see there straight away. You could argue, and there is a debate. There is a debate that maybe Son can't press, or maybe Harry hasn't got the pace anymore to press, or whatever. But there was pockets. Kulusevski did exactly today in the first half what Salah did. He won the ball on the edge of the parent area. He was good at that, but no one else was doing that. And that was the point you're making. It's in pockets. So we have, and it just feels like it's just a mess of. There's no direction. There's no clear way of understanding of how we're going to play and what we're going to do. Are we a pressing team? Are we not a pressing team? For the last 3.5 years, we've been a sit back and soak up the pressure team and hit somebody on the counter. And even when you read out Klopp's comments earlier, it's kind of like, well, that is what we do. That is what we're known to do. And I think that has had an impact on our ability as a team to not press. Does that make sense? So I just want to say on that. I think with Harry Kane, I think that he wants to stay in the Premier League, right? He's just equaled Wayne Rooney's the 208 goals. So he's now joint second highest Premier League goal scorer of all time, which basically means he's 52 goals behind equaling Alan Shearer. And that on the rate that Harry's scoring, that is probably what, 2 seasons, maybe 2.5 seasons. Now you could also argue that he's 30 years old come the summer. And actually, you look at the likes of Benzema, who, by the way, got a hat-trick yesterday, another hat-trick for Real Madrid. He's the likes of 34, 35 years old. You've got, Luka Modric, who, only a year ago, 18 months ago, picked up the Ballon d'Or, and he's knocking on 38 years old or whatever it might be. So you could argue Ryan Giggs is a great example in the Premier League of still playing football until you're 40 years old. So you could argue that Harry's still got a huge amount of time left in his career. And actually, like one of our other greats that did go to Manchester United in terms of Teddy Sheringham, as the older years come upon us all, maybe start to change his game a little bit. We've seen he's brilliant when he drops into a number 10 and starts to ping balls around or whatever, and that might end up prolonging his career to get the goal. So for me, the guy is the greatest striker in the Premier League. I know Alan Shearer is today, of course, but I think he will surpass that. So in terms of destinations of where he goes, he will not want to go abroad. His family are in Tottenham, his family are in London and in England. He wants to be in the Premier League. I don't see how Daniel Levy can sanction a sale for him in the way Daniel Levy is today. I just cannot see it. This guy is under so much pressure and so much scrutiny. Selling our crown jewels is just literally suicide, right? He's just not going to do that. So we've now got a conundrum where Harry Kane could leave at the end of at the end of his contract. But if we was to sanction a sale, where would he go? And that's the key point is, City's not going to Manchester City anymore, is he? Let's be honest. They've got the cyborg in Haaland, who's now, by the way, scored 50 goals in the season, which is utterly ridiculous. He's not going to Arsenal ever, and I don't think that. And he's not going to do a Sol Campbell on us, is he? My word, that would be absolutely horrendous. He's not going to Liverpool anytime soon. And maybe there's a Newcastle there. Maybe you could argue, with the Newcastle or the money or whatever. But typically, the only other destinations is painstakingly making me feel sick, Chelsea or Manchester United. Now, with Poch going to Chelsea, look, potential, I don't know. With Manchester United sniffing around, who knows? But they're the only 2 destinations that he's going to go to, Rick. So really and truly, does he want to go? Are Manchester United guaranteed to win a Premier League or a Champions League? Even though no one's guaranteed, by the way. Breaking news, everybody, no one is guaranteed to win a Champions League or a Premier League. And you can argue the toss with me if you want, because you can say, Real Madrid are. Well, no, Real Madrid might have won 15 European Cups, but they are miles behind La Liga this year, as an example. Well, Man City are amazing. They've never won the Champions League. So the point being is, it don't matter how good you are, how many cyborgs you've got playing for you, you're never guaranteed to win the league or win the cup. And I wouldn't say that Manchester United, even though we're in an absolute mess, they're not that much further ahead than where we are. Chelsea, years gone by, they are pretty much guaranteed to win silverware every single season, pretty much, but based on the money they've spent and whatever. But they're also in a massive transitional period. So I think the right time is to try and get Harry tied into. And I think, the key message is, even in that Sky interview, is that where's the culture, where's the plan, where's the vision? That's what we've all been asking for. That's what the
fans have all been asking for. We're all asking for the same thing.
That's all what we want, because at the end of the day, it's something for us to get behind. Make a decision. This is who we want to be. This is where we're going, and this is who we want. And go out and give him what he needs. I know Jason always used to hate it when give Toby what he wants, but give Kane what he needs to perform, because there'd be nothing worse than us having a guy that's been our greatest ever goal scorer in the club's history, and then the season before he breaks the record, he goes and moves to bloody Newcastle or Manchester United or whatever, and then he breaks it there, and then it forever be known as breaking a record at a different club. And that's Spursy, isn't it? Let's be brutally honest about it. That is classic Tottenham. So for me, it is a priority for the football club and for Harry to work out where they want to be.
Well, we would love to spend more time discussing Harry's future, but we are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners' audio. Taking into that break, you are going to hear from an honest Harry Kane, who gives you his thoughts on the back of scoring at Anfield. But yes, Spurs coming away with absolutely nothing as we look to close off this show. Russ, let me come back around to you again. Must just say thank you so much for the watching audience here. Over 1,400 of you tuning into us here, watching us live again. Incredible support for Last Word on Spurs.
Fabulous.
You guys are heroic. Thank you so much for sticking by us here. We're hoping for better times ahead. Russ, second half, Son, Romero striking each, both of them in the post in the space of a minute.
Yeah.
And we then sort of course, Spurs going close again, really. So there was miles of space left behind Liverpool's back line. Spurs did eventually get their second goal of the game. Son collected it from Romero's pass, slid it under Alisson. It does mean that Son has now scored 10+ goals for 7 seasons in a row. Credit there to Sunmo Lee. Big fan of Last Word on Spurs. And likewise, Sunmo, we love your work as well. And it was almost coming to that category where it had been coming for Son. He hit the woodwork a couple of times before that. He had one cleared off the line. Do you feel Russ taking anything out of context here with Tottenham and just focusing on Son? Do you think he's ending the season in a way in which will be positive, given how poor he's been really for the majority of it?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an improvement, but I think the whole team have to be given some credit for the second half performance because they were on the front foot. They were attacking. They were faster to the ball, and that's why we ended up getting an equaliser. We know what happened after that. But they played in a completely different way. It was like watching a different Spurs. It was like, where do they come from? And, so they have to be congratulated. But Sonny is a class player. We all know that. And, maybe he didn't like the coaching. Maybe he didn't. I know that he comes out, oh, yes, Conte says he was wonderful. I remember him smiling and doing what Sonny does. Maybe when he's lying in bed at night, he's thinking, I really don't enjoy playing this way. And he seems a lot happier when he plays with Harry in a 2 than, for a season and a bit, being stuck out on the left, which is okay when he cuts in, but everyone knows that's part of his game. But when he's in a 2 with Harry, he can go left, he can go right. Do you know what I mean? Instead of he could just come in
coming out as well. Sorry to interact with Russ quickly there. I liked him coming out on the right in the last couple of games. Left and the right. I don't know why he's so fluid in our front four.
I think he looks a lot more now, doesn't he, Lee, at freedom. He just seems like he's playing a lot more. The shackles have been lifted.
Come in or let Richarlison dip in, let Kane come short, let runners go behind. It's a bloody nightmare. You do not want to defend against that stuff. Perisic as well. He got another assist today. He's been woeful in recent times. He got another assist. He's generally left foot, right foot. You don't know what to do with him. He's stuck. What do you do? I think John from Williams posted it earlier. He sent Virgil van Dijk for a hot dog. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, at the end of the day, it's like, you don't want to be defending against them sorts of interchanges. Don't really know where they are. Been so rigid. Going back to my point, 3.5 years of rigidness. Don't move. Have to stay where you are. Do your job. Make sure you do this. What about that fluidity of letting imagine Harry Redknapp coming into the football club now and just putting his arm out and going, do you know what, boys? We're going to go and have a go. That I feel like a little bit like that. What Mason's doing with them, like, lads, come on, let's go and have a bit of a go. Yes, we lose football matches for it, but we also get entertained. Like you said earlier, under Conte or under Mourinho, whatever. If we've gone 3-0 down, we've been done. We've just been rigid. You've had a go today.
I do think. I
was just going to say, Rick. The only thing is, he won the Golden Boot in that system.
Yeah.
We went to Leeds and scored 4. We went to Villa and scored 4. We put 5 past Newcastle, put 3 past Leicester, put 3 past Arsenal, went to Manchester City and scored 3.
Yeah. 5 past Norwich, of course, on the last day. It is bizarre, isn't it?
Sorry, can I just say this as well? But because these are some unbelievable players this year. For unbelievable Newcastle, Almiron scored 11 goals. Mitrovic 11 goals. Isaac for Newcastle, quality striker, scored 10 goals. Son scored 10. He scored 10 goals. This is Son's level. He might end up scoring a goal every game for the next game. He might end up 14 Premier League goals and whatever assists, 5 or 6 assists. That's kind of his level. Last season, he was brilliant, got a golden boot or whatever. But Son's level is about 14, 15 goals, and that's what he's scoring.
It's okay doing that, of course, when you've got Harry in the team. I mean, take Harry out of that team is another equation. Russ, let me come over to you. Many have picked up on the fact, Russ, when I even go on my commutes, that I always ask you, Russ, about the refereeing decisions. and I ask you about controversial subjects. I think it's deliberate. Let me just tell you, it absolutely is.
Okay, good.
in a good way, because we always get honest views from Russ when it comes to some of the decisions. And there's two I've got to ask you about, Russ. And the first one I want to ask you about is Mason being furious as Spurs asked for a penalty as Højbjerg went down on the box. Now, again, we do this show straight after the game, so I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see it back, watch it back. What did you think, Russ, on that one? Should that have been a penalty?
I haven't seen it back. No, not for me.
Okay, interesting. And obviously, in between that period, Sarr came on for Kulusevski, and then there was that outrageous moment. I think, Russ, you've already discussed and alluded to how he could have remained on the pitch. Jota, if he hasn't seen a red card there for Skip, he'll never get one, will he? I mean, we've got VAR here. I don't know how VAR have determined that to allow Jota to not only stay on the pitch, but then get the bloody winner. I mean, how was he still on the pitch, Russ, after that incident, in your opinion?
Well, he can't be, because it was dangerous play. And for the benefit of people listening who've just joined us and watching, I think the commentary team on the television said, well, Jota's just explained to the referee he didn't mean to do it. But he did it. He did it. It's a red card. And I find it suspicious that it's at Anfield that it's not given. And people will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, Rick. And for him to still be on the pitch and get the winner, you have to really, VAR to me is absolutely imponderable. You never know which way it's going to go. It takes a joy out the game.
Yep.
It's toenail football. I mean, it really is nonsense. But to me, it's so obvious that, Skip has been kicked in the head.
It is utterly bizarre. I mean, again, I know I said this at the start of the show. Earlier, Ryan Mason said it himself. It's one of the clearest red cards I have ever seen on a football pitch. Yes. We need an explanation. Do you wonder, I mean, Jace, I've asked this before, I think, on previous shows. Do you honestly feel that it is difficult to get those kind of decisions at certain grounds, the likes of Anfield, Old Trafford, the Bernabeu? I can reel them off. Certain grounds where you just simply won't get decisions. Is it as easy to say that? Because in the past, we have had situations where at Anfield, we're not being given one penalty, we've been given two. So we have had situations where we've got the decisions. So do you believe in that mantra that many do feel?
Yeah, I think it is difficult to get one at Anfield. But if you ask a Brighton player or a Brentford player or a Wolves player, they'll say it's impossible to get one at Tottenham. It's the old thing of they favour the bigger team as such. I mean, that's something that's gone on. I mean, it was a shocking decision. I think it is red, but and the Højbjerg one's never a penalty. There's more of a case for the one on Richarlison where the bloke is grabbing him, but then full well that Richarlison's going to ruin it by just collapsing in that way to the floor, and then it kind of loses its impact. But Konaté's definitely completely got his arms around him, giving him a bear hug. But you won't get those at Anfield. But like I say, there'll be times where teams will say that you won't get them at Tottenham. So it's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. And it always seems to me it's sod's law that they get the winner, that particular player. And then the double jeopardy of that is, of course, if he's sent off and banned for 3 games, you watch he'll score the winner next week in a game that he shouldn't be playing in as well. That kind of thing is the knock-on effect of it.
Yeah.
But the indictment is, though, he stays on the pitch and he gets the winner during the game.
Well, of course it is. That's the frustration, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the frustration. But, yeah, I mean, Konaté, if you think about it, if they give the penalty for the one on Konaté gets yellowed, and he'd already seen yellow.
Yep.
So, there'd be another sending off.
Do you think that's why they don't? Do you think that's why he didn't give it as a foul as well in the back of his mind, because he knows that he's got to send him off if it is a foul?
I don't know.
I mean, it goes so quick, didn't it? Is that just too much conspiracy theory?
For me, I don't believe there's any conspiracies. I don't believe they're corrupt or anything like that. I think they make decisions from their one angle. I always feel, the VAR is the frustrating, because for the referee on the pitch, he sees it once. There may well be a player that blocks his view. he gets one angle at speed. Players are diving and cheating all over the pitch. So I have a lot more sympathy with the referee, the VAR official on the sending off. But it depends what's this is the whole thing of, isn't it? Is it the clear and obvious error? If the VAR man, gets the message from the on-field decision that there's a bit raised his head high, I don't think it's deliberate. I don't think he's done that. Then there's not enough then to say to him, come and have a look at it. That's the grey area with the VAR, isn't it?
But it's got to be.
It's incredibly frustrating when it goes against you. But we had the goal, didn't we, earlier in the season where we scored against Leeds when Meslier was knocked into the back of the net from a corner. And we got the goal and we won the game by 1 goal. So
and also, we can't get away from the fact Brighton even a couple of weeks ago, there's no...
There you go. Ask Brighton about corruption at home grounds where you don't get decisions.
Again, it's so difficult. Look, what did
just
happen
quickly on here, Spurs CC makes a fantastic point. Yeah, because I've never reffed a game in my life. You absolutely bang on the money. I've never reffed, which is why I was asking the question. So yeah, I've never reffed a game in my life. Absolutely not.
Let me ask.
Like I've always said though, Rick, for me, don't ever hide behind a referee's decision. As frustrating as it is, we've conceded 4 goals, and that is why we've lost the game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lee, let me come over to you, Lee. Richarlison, what a time, what a place to get his first league goal. Look, again, Jason said it, bring him on because it's Merseyside, it's Anfield, and anything can happen. When he did get Spurs level, it was completing a remarkable comeback. He got himself bravely on the end of Son's free kick to draw Spurs level. And we've at that moment that what a week it's been for Ryan Mason. 4 points on the back of a week which has been turbulent, which has been very, very hard.
2 points.
Oh, sorry, I'm doing it again. 2 points. I'm only trying to up him. 2 points on the back of what's been a difficult week where it would have given us a little bit of a feel-good factor. The timing of the goal, look, we all would have wanted more, of course, but we couldn't even have that, Lee. But before we discuss the ending, Richarlison's goal, did you think at that moment, Lee, we rescued a point?
Yeah, honestly, at that point, I thought we could go and win it. I honestly thought we could do it because I just thought as soon as we got the second, I thought we could go and win the football match. And then when the third goes in, and you knew it was Richarlison, and to be fair to Jace, he's been calling it for a few days actually on the WhatsApp group saying Richarlison has to start in Merseyside. It's an absolute no-brainer. Loves a bit of shithousery and whatever, and it's Merseyside and all that. Jason's words on the WhatsApp group was absolutely bang on. It was very fitting for him to score his first goal, which is utterly crazy to say that he's only scored 1 Premier League goal this season, which is madness. And that was today. But when that went in, I thought to myself, here we go. Because I just thought we was on an upward trajectory and Liverpool were worried. And then we obviously gifted him at the other end. It's a good point that Jason made. I mean, I was one of the armchair fans, I suppose, today, like going mental when we equalised. So I didn't even notice that we didn't go and get the ball and put it on the centre spot or nothing. So I was one of them ones that just like, oh my God, I can't believe we're in. But you're right, Jace, of course you are. If they'd have just kept their heads and got that ball, it's such a hard one because it was Richarlison. It was against Liverpool. He is ex-Everton. It was his first goal for the club that he'd been absolutely clucking to get. You wanted to make it, and you're right, Rick. It would have been a feel-good factor. It would have been a different feel. Like I said this earlier in the show. It would be a different feel, wouldn't it? In the training room, in the dressing, around the dressing room, in the training ground this week, getting ready for Crystal Palace at home off the back of 3-0 down, going to 3-3 at Anfield. That would have felt like a win. I know it doesn't. It wasn't, and it isn't, and it shouldn't paper over the cracks. But it would have. It would have felt like a win. Would have come away. Would have still been above Liverpool in the table. We wouldn't have been sitting where we are now. Do you know what I mean? It would just been a point at Anfield for Tottenham Hotspur. It is a massive point. I think we've only won there, whatever it was. Keith put it up earlier.
5 in the last 122
12 years. So
yeah,
at the end of the day, you've got to take the little things. So to get a point there after 3-0 down would have been massive. And look, that's football, but to get it ripped away from you, that is just, do you know what? I don't want to get the violins out and feel sorry for ourselves because I don't like that. We've got to pick ourselves up and we go again and get all the emojis out, whatever the club does. But in fairness, we do have to pick ourselves, and we've got to go and get something else out of the rest of the season. However, it is a bloody sickener, isn't it? It's hard to take that.
Russ, let me come over to you to discuss that winner, if I can. Sorry to put you through it again, pal. I really do apologise. I mean, in the most politest way, Lucas Moura sending Jota through to win it. And, again, I said this earlier, and I know Jason didn't like it. Those moments in isolation from Lucas Moura has now single-handedly cost Tottenham points in both his last 2 games that he's featured in, despite only being on the pitch for 12 of the 180 minutes. And look, we all respect what Lucas did for us in Ajax. I mean, look, being honest, how I feel is I think he has lived off that moment for a very, very long, long time.
Yeah.
He's another player that really should have been moved on quite a while ago. He's only here because, for whatever reason, Spurs maybe have held on to try and think they could get a full value for him, but have now admitted in acceptance that he's going to leave the club on a free transfer. Should he even be coming off the bench, Russ, in the most politest way me saying that?
I don't think so, because he's not played enough. He can't be match sharp. And the mistake for the goal was just basics, really. I mean, and that's a worrying thing. And we go back to what Jason said at the start of the show, that this is all about mistakes, conceding 3 goals in the first 15 minutes of this match. Again, early goal against Man United. We know what happened at Newcastle. Lord knows I was there. It was terrible. But you also make mistakes at the other end as well. And for him to, I just wouldn't, why would you bring him on? You bring him on for pace. I mean, really, did they think that he was going to run up and do what he did in Ajax in the Amsterdam Stadium? Chances are he wasn't going to do that. And because he's not played enough at this level, I think it's not his fault. He just isn't match sharp and mentally prepared and drilled in the right way. I would have kept him up on the halfway line and not had him back there. But anyway, there you go.
But Russ, can I just ask on that as well, like to all of you boys and the viewers and listeners as well? So I've got this thing in my head that when we got the ball, Tottenham, and after the last 3.5 years being coached the way we have, it feels like that we want an extra, I don't want to say a second because that's way too much, but half a second or whatever on the ball. It feels like that's what we need. And we're so casual. And the way that Lucas passed that ball back, it was so casual, wasn't it? It was so like, yeah, don't worry. It's almost like I can't describe this properly to get everybody to understand what I'm going to say, but it's like they're trying to disguise it. It's like they're trying to make themselves believe that they can be casual. And it's when someone falls over and they try and style it out. Do you see where I'm coming from? They try to start out. Oh yeah, I didn't fall over. They're trying to, it's like that. It's kind of like Eric Dyer, like just passes the ball, like whereas he should be doing it with aggression and with pace or with power. He kind of just floats the ball across. And Lucas got the ball and he thought, just casually pass it back rather than with it being assertive. Does that make sense? And it just catches us out. I think we got done by that side, Sanchez and Porro against Leicester when they smashed us 4-1 down that side. Against Bournemouth, down that side. Again, down that side today. And it wasn't Porro, obviously, it was Lucas, but just so casual. It's like we don't know what to do when the ball's being, like when they're pressing us. We're like, casual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But it happened. And it is one of the reasons, unbelievably, why we all love football, because of this late drama. We've done it to people. We've had it done to us today. It's just a manner, when I was like you, Lee, I just thought to myself, wow, 3-3 draw. That is incredible. We're going to have a good show. We've had a good show anyway.
Yeah, of course,
Obviously.
But it lifts us all up, doesn't it? It lifts the mood up.
And he knew what he'd done. Of course, he knew what he'd done. The camera went in on him, and at the end
what makes it worse is he did it, but he only did it a few weeks ago, and he apologized. And this is what I don't understand.
That's why he wouldn't have been on in my team, Rick.
It's insanity, though, isn't it, to keep doing the same thing over and over again? Look, I just want to close with this. You guys have been giving us 2 hours of your time and 2 hours of therapy. So again, thank you so much, guys, for all your time you've given us here on Last Word on Spurs. Just want to close it with this now. On the back of that result, and for Ryan, the 2 games in a week now. I just want to know from you guys each as we look to close this, essentially what you do feel and how this season's going to end, in your opinion. Forget I'm not asking for predictions of, the next couple of games, but Lee, how do you expect this current season to end as things stand now on the back of yet another sickener of a result?
Well, I did the prediction the other day. I got us down as finishing 6th, but I also didn't have Brighton down to smash Wolves at the weekend 6-0. I did have them down to win, but not to win 6-0. But that does that, and I did have us down to lose today, to be honest. And I've also got us down to beat Villa. So look, Tottenham never do it exactly my point, Rick. So Tottenham never do it the easy way. But look, if we want Europa League football, regardless if anyone wants to banter that, they can. But if you want Europa League football, we have to go to Villa and win. It's that simple. As Cracker says, simple as that. You have to go to Villa and you have to win. We did it last season. We smashed them 4-0, but they had 9 shots on target in that first half against us last year. And that was when we were playing at our pomp, and we still conceded 9 shots against our own goal. I think Lloris had an outstanding game in the first half, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be very, very tough, and Emery's got them playing well. But, next game is Palace. Got to get 3 points from there. The fans singing behind us, go and have a good result against Palace. They're now scoring goals under Roy Hodgson. I think they've got 12 points or 13 points out of the first 5 games. That he's, new manager bounce, which we didn't get.
That's one that has worked, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. So, what do I expect? I expect more ups and downs. I honestly think that we could go the whole season and not win another game. I also think that it wouldn't surprise me if we went and won all of the games left. There's 4 games left. And we have to win them all if we want Champions League. I'm deluded. If we want Europa League football, if you want Europa League football, we have to win all 4 games. So that's our mission.
Yeah, what's crazy, Jay? It's coming over to you. They were billing today's game against Liverpool as almost again a playoff for the Europa League. I mean, quite frankly, any game that Spurs go into with any kind of sense of a battle or a playoff, just forget it. And I do what. I'm dreading Villa. I know obviously they lost against Manchester United, but that's a very good Villa side that have been completely and utterly transformed under Unai Emery. And I do wonder again, if Unai Emery hadn't have been the manager of Arsenal in the past, would someone like him have suited the job at Tottenham? I just wonder, because what he's done at Villa has been quite remarkable. I know there won't be clamorings from Spurs fans to bring Unai Emery in, but he's been remarkable what he's done there. So Jace, closing it with you and obviously then going to Russ, how do you expect the season to finish?
More madness. That's all I can honestly say. More madness.
More mad than this.
There'll be a 3-2 game where there'll be at least one 3-2 game. It might be the Brentford game at home. I just expect more madness, mate. And I have no, like Lee said, I'm not surprised if we lose all 4. Not surprised if we lose. The one thing at Villa, despite Lee's right, we got battered there, but it is one of the grounds that we always seem to go and get a result, isn't it? We had Sonny scoring the dying seconds there a couple of years ago. We won 3-2
before COVID.
Van der Vaart got a hat-trick there, didn't he? Or Bale got a hat-trick or something like that.
Kane scored his only free kick ever.
Kane's dying seconds.
At this point, though, Jace, do we believe in lucky grounds the way this season's been for us? Goodison Park was a lucky ground, and you would send us.
We didn't lose there, did we?
We didn't lose there. We didn't win there either.
There you go. I mean, our away form is LLLLLLDLLL or something, isn't it? So the only place we didn't lose was a lucky ground.
You can bet your bet on, you can bet your life, Jace, or as Cracker says it, I absolutely love this saying, bet your bollocks to a barn dance that if Villa and Tottenham, it's a battle for the playoff for the Europa League, Villa are going to want to win that, and they'll be right up for that, and the home fans will be behind them. And again, it'll be similar to Newcastle, where the stadium will be very much, as Russ knows, they're in favour of the home side, as what he witnessed up at St James's Park only a week ago.
Yeah.
Will be, but let's get Palace out of the way. I don't even know how we'll get on against Palace. They scored 4 yesterday, played really well with the ball, looked very suspect at corners and things. And we usually give Palace one hell of a hiding at home, don't we? So
as Anthony Costa would say, Zaha and Elise against us. That's going to be really, really fun. We're very excited.
Zaha's going to love it.
Yeah. Russ, let me close it with you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you back on Last Word on Spurs. Before I ask you what you're up to, and what obviously is in the diary for you, tell me how you do feel this season's going to peter out. You're actually back with us, Russ, for your sins before the end of this season. I wonder if you're going to give me a cancellation after this.
Yeah. Is it the Villa game I'm doing?
I think you are doing Villa. Yeah, I think Russ, you are for Villa. Good. Yeah, Russ is with us for the battle for probably battle for the Europa League spot, depending on how next week goes, of course.
Look, as ever, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, my best case scenario is we'll finish 6th, but I think there's going to be. I used to go behind the sofa watching us play, and now sit on it motionless because I'm pretty emotionless as well because it's just been terrible, really. There's been so many lowlights and hardly any highlights this season. It's been a miserable 9 months, sort of with the World Cup in there as well. The only thing I would say is the future's always bright. All right. I'm not going to go all TV evangelist. When I was up at Newcastle and the people who were up there supporting Spurs, and there was a lot of them, admittedly, 1 or 2 of them did leave early, nowhere near the amount that was claimed, incidentally, in the first half. They were all still there. Up there at that football club, there is a genuine togetherness that come what may on the pitch, they all stick together. When they're happy when they win, they're disappointed when they lose, but they move on to another game. And I feel that our fan base at the moment are a bit split. Some poch, some non-poch, the way we play, the way they want us to play in the future, the players who shouldn't be there, who they'd like to, we need to, at the end of the season, take stock of how bad it's been, because that's what we're going to do, and come together as a bunch of fans and get behind the team for next season. I really do think that. And I think it's so important because negativity feeds lack of success. And, the players will feel it. So whoever the new manager is, and I do smell Brendan Rodgers, I'm sorry to say, because I don't think he's the answer for us. I've not heard anything. But I think we'll finish 6th. Europa League football, I personally would be quite happy with that, because if we can have a good run and give it a good go with a new manager, some new players, and maybe some old loan players back who decide that they're actually going to, deliver for the money that we pay for them, the likes of Ndombele, Champions League football could be around the corner, because I think in the Premier League, as we touched on earlier, it's going to be so difficult for Tottenham in the Premier League to get in the top 4, because all the big boys are going to be fired up again next season. And I hope we do it, but I think it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think the worry is now.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No. I think the worry is Russ sparked a conversation earlier about if it's Roland Rat or Brendan Rodgers, and I'm worried that Roland Rat's got up in the betting odds since Russ has mentioned it.
Blimey, he looks as though he is. Yes, well, there's a lot of Roland Rat fans.
I tell you what, give me Roland Rat over Tongi and Ndombele in the checker trade. I tell you, please, Roland, have the job.
The levels are where this show has gone to. Come on, Lee.
A couple of positives to throw out there. Anyway. If we do lose against Villa, positives as in everything that we talked about with the Europa checker trade. If we do lose against Villa, we ain't going to finish above Villa, and therefore we won't get 7th, and therefore we won't get Europa checker trade, right? Because Brighton have got 3 games in hand on us and Villa. So typically, the way they're playing, smashing teams 6-0, whatever, and their goal difference as well is massive. You can probably put them in the top 6. So you could argue we're already, like you said earlier in the show, we're already fighting Villa for 7th. So if we lose against Villa, then Brentford will probably turn us over on the early midday kickoff game which we all hate, and then we'll probably end up finishing 9th. So there's a little bit of positive if you don't want to check a trade situation. But look, I think it's weird because you never ever want your team to lose ever, and even though all the misery that we've been going on this season for us, every time kickoff comes, you're always singing "Come on, you Spurs," and you always want to win. It's just the way that we are and the way we're ingrained. So. Let's hope that we do give the best shot and try and finish 6th.
Absolutely. Russ, I have to ask you, for those that want to hear your dulcet tones on maybe not talking about Tottenham, which will cheer them up as well, where can they do that, Russ, and what's in the diary for you? Anything worth mentioning? You want to give us a little mention on last one?
Nation Radio tomorrow morning, 10 a.m, online, DAB, FM, Wales, Scotland, London, South Coast. Tune in, great music. We're playing number 1s tomorrow for the whole day. So there you go. And I got a new book out, Rick, Sad But True.
Go for
100 sad and hilariously funny stories that really happen to real people all over the world, available on Amazon Kindle, and it's getting good reviews, which is nice. Sad but true. Bit like Spurs.
And Russ, I will have to ask you to send me a link to that. We're going to have to put that in our YouTube and audio description for men who's going to buy that. So, Russ, send me the link. We'll put that definitely in the description of the show.
Kind of you. Ricky,
our pleasure.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. I'll be contacting you after to make sure you get the link.
I love the show. It's doing brilliantly well. Every time I'm not on it, it seems to be in the top 10 podcasts in the world for sport.
Think how Jason feels. He's exactly the same.
God, Jason.
I'm just looking forward, mate. Tottenham in Bangkok. I can't wait for that. At least I'll have a bit of enjoyment in the summer. Tottenham in Bangkok.
Then they've got to come back. That's the problem. Listen, I must say a wonderful thank you to Russ. Pleasure as always. Make sure you go and buy Russ's book. We'll be putting a link in this show for that as well. Russ, thank you so much, bud. We're looking forward to having you back on the Villa. As much as you're dreading it, we're looking forward to having you back, as the viewers and listeners are. Jace, thank you as always. I think apart from Brentford, there's not many left for you in terms of game shows. So we'll just be hoping
thank God for that.
Yeah, I know. You bet you can't wait till the ending.
Cheers.
Macca's, I think, also counting them down.
Is there one more manager sacking special on or something like that? Nothing.
Yeah,
don't rule anything out. Don't rule anything out on this show.
Shows you want me on? No,
not just yet. I'll let you know.
Bangkok it is then. I'll see you in Bangkok.
We're going to go and do a pot special to Chelsea, are we, when he's announced?
Oh, my God.
Please don't pass through the pain.
I'll let Macca take that one. I know he's desperate. We'll get John on for that one and Jamie. They'll all be delighted with that one. Macca, thank you, bud. Difficult at the moment.
Yeah, no worries.
Trying to give something back at the moment. It's hard. I mean, look, the shows. I know we say they're tough. They are tough because to go and watch it, and that's why I love having these guys on Last Word on Spurs. To go and watch it and then have to come and do the game afterwards on here. Tough.
Can I just say as well? I mean, I thought the away fans. I know Russ said it earlier, but I thought the away fans tonight again were absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
This is why this football club deserves. I know people get the violins out. You don't deserve anything. We deserve something else than what we're getting right now. We deserve something different because them away fans today were absolutely outstanding. Most of them, all of them, went to Newcastle. And then they've rocked up there, and in 15 minutes, they're served up with that 3-0, and they are still singing at the top of their voices. And I have to give them a massive shout out because sometimes I'm in the away fans. I don't get to go to all the away games, but when I can, I do. We travel well together, and it's magnificent, absolutely magnificent. And look, we've got an extra day tomorrow, right? So try and enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the day. Don't let you too much, right? Go and enjoy yourselves, and I've got about three episodes left of Stranger Things, which is absolutely outstanding, by the way. So I'm going to go off on Netflix and chill. I think the saying is, you know what I mean.
I think our neck's been flicked enough today, mate. 4 times our neck's got flicked.
Hey.
Look, thank you so much, boys. Absolutely loved it. As Rob said, nearly got another refund. So there you go. It's what this club's doing to us these days. From Lee, from Jason, from the wonderful Russ Williams, make sure you go and check the link to his book. That's going to be in the description of this show on audio and, of course, YouTube. From what I see, guys, as always, please keep safe, keep well. The soap opera goes on, as King Huddle says. Come on, you Spurs.